Asterisk. She thought her parents were dead, until the night she stepped back into that house, a house where shadows whispered in Thai, and the dead stared back with pale, unblinking eyes. But what she found wasn't just her family. It was the secret that killed them, and it was still alive. If you want to know what happened when the truth finally stepped out of the dark, watch till the end. And if you want more chilling stories like this, hit subscribe now and share your ideas in the comments, because the next story might be the one you've been too afraid to hear. Asterisk. Under the orange glow of the streetlights, Maya stood in the middle of the empty road, her hands trembling, her eyes fixed on the small black notebook clutched to her chest. Somewhere behind her, a door slammed, and the sound echoed through quiet night like a gunshot. She had promised herself she would never come back here, not after what happened that summer in 2008. The crickets hummed in the distance, and the faint smell of grilled chicken from the old Thai food truck down the street lingered in the air, the same scent that used to drift through the neighborhood when her father would work late at the restaurant. Her father's voice still haunted her, soft but urgent, whispering in Thai. Some secrets can kill. She thought it was just an old saying, a warning parents give their children to keep them out of trouble. But now she knew it was more than that. The notebook in her hand was heavy, not with paper, but with the truth inside it. Truth that had been buried under years of lies, smiles, and silence. She took a step toward the old house at the end of the block. Its windows were dark, the porch sagging like a mouth too tired to speak. The wooden wind chime still hung by the door, swaying gently in the night breeze, its hollow sound oddly out of place. That was where it happened, where they died. Her breath quickened as she climbed the creaking steps, each one louder than the last. The notebook seemed to burn in her hand. A shadow moved inside. Maya froze. Her heart slammed against her ribs, and the night around her seemed to lean in, listening. The door creaked open just enough for a sliver of light to spill out, and in that light, she saw the face she never thought she'd see again, the face of the person who knew the secret just as well as she did. And in that instant, she realized they weren't here to talk. The figure stepped into the doorway, eyes glinting in the dim light, lips curling into something that wasn't quite a smile. Maya, they said softly, like her name was both a memory and a threat. She swallowed hard. Her voice caught somewhere between fear and fury. You're supposed to be dead. They tilted their head, the way her brother used to when teasing her. But this wasn't teasing. This was something darker. The night air pressed heavy between them, thick with the scent of lemongrass and damp earth, a smell that dragged her back to the nights her family would gather in the backyard, telling ghost stories under paper lanterns. Only now, the ghost stood in front of her. I told you not to open it, they said, eyes dropping to the notebook in her hand. Her fingers tightened around it. You think I'd just let it rot in the dark? People died. Their voice sharpened. People had to die. If you read it, Maya, it'll be your turn next. A chill climbed her spine, but she didn't back away. The wind picked up, carrying the distant clang of a temple bell from the Thai cultural center across town. It sounded strangely out of place in the quiet American neighborhood. It felt like a warning. The figure stepped closer, and she could finally see the faint scar across their jaw, a scar she remembered giving them that night, the night they disappeared. You don't understand, they whispered, leaning so close she could feel the heat of their breath. This secret, it didn't just kill them, it's still killing. And then, from somewhere inside the house, a second voice spoke. Maya, run. Her head snapped toward the sound, but the hallway beyond the doorway was drowned in shadow. That voice, it was faint, trembling, but she knew it. She hadn't heard it in 17 years. Her mother's voice. The figure in front of her didn't move, didn't even flinch. Instead, their eyes narrowed, as if they were daring her to step inside. Mama? Her own voice cracked, fragile in the thick silence. The wind chime outside groaned in the wind, its notes twisted and broken, like it, too, was warning her not to go in. Her feet moved anyway. One step over the threshold. The air inside was cooler, but heavy, and it smelled faintly of incense and dust. Like a temple abandoned mid-prayer, the door clicked shut behind her. Her eyes strained to adjust to the dark, and she saw shapes, familiar furniture, old framed photos of her parents at Songkran Festival in Chinatown, her brother holding a water gun, everyone smiling. Then the figure's hand closed around her wrist, tight, pulling her toward the staircase. "You want the truth?" they said. "Then you're going to see it exactly how I saw it." Up the stairs, each creak louder, each breath harder to take. Somewhere above, something was moving, a slow, dragging sound. When they reached the top, the hallway stretched out, lined with closed doors. But only one was open, and a faint golden light spilled out from inside. That's where she heard it again, her mother's voice, clearer now, whispering in Thai. "Child, don't look." The figure pushed the door wide, and Maya's breath caught in her throat, because sitting in the middle of the room was her mother, and she hadn't aged a single day. Maya's knees nearly gave out. Her mother's skin was smooth, her black hair pulled neatly into the same low bun she'd worn the night she died. The room itself looked untouched by time, lace curtains swaying gently, the carved wooden cabinet from Thailand still holding rows of porcelain elephants, the faint scent of jasmine tea drifting in the air. "Mama?" Maya's voice was barely a whisper. She took a step forward, but her mother raised a hand, her eyes sharp, almost pleading. "You shouldn't be here," her mother said, her English laced with the same soft accent Maya remembered from childhood bedtime stories. "They'll hear you." Maya froze. "They? Who?" The floorboards groaned behind her. The figure who had brought her here stepped into the light, but now their face seemed different, older, colder. "They already know," they said, closing the door behind them with a slow, deliberate click. Her mother's gaze darted to the black notebook still in Maya's grip. "That doesn't belong to you," she said quickly, almost fearfully. "Put it back before—" Before what? The words burned in Maya's throat, but before she could ask, the sound came. It was faint at first, like the hum of a refrigerator. Then it grew, low, rhythmic, a chanting in Thai that seemed to seep through the walls themselves. Her mother's eyes widened. "They're coming." The figure stepped closer to Maya, their shadow spilling over hers. "You opened it," they said softly, their voice almost pitying. "That means they'll take you too." The chanting grew louder, the syllables overlapping, like 100 voices speaking as one. Somewhere in the hallway, the closed doors began to rattle. Maya's pulse thundered in her ears. Her fingers itched to open the notebook right there, to see what could possibly be worth this nightmare. Then, without warning, her mother lunged forward and tore the notebook from her hands. The sudden movement sent Maya stumbling back, her shoulders slamming into the wooden cabinet, one of the porcelain elephants tumbling to the floor and shattering. Her mother clutched the notebook to her chest, her breath sharp and uneven. "You don't know what this is," she said, her voice trembling but firm. The chanting outside grew frantic, pounding through the walls, as if the house itself was vibrating. Maya's eyes locked on the notebook. "I know it's why they died," she said, her own voice rising. "And I know you—" She hesitated, her words catching. "You were supposed to be dead too." Her mother's face flickered with something, guilt, sorrow, before she spoke. "I was taken, Maya, not killed." The figure by the door let out a low laugh, but it was humorless, cold. "She still doesn't get it," they said, looking between them. "This isn't about life or death. It's about staying here." Before Maya could ask, the first door in the hallway burst open. The light from the room spilled out just enough to reveal them. A tall, thin man dressed in a tattered saffron monk's robe, his eyes clouded white, his mouth moving in perfect sync with the chanting. Behind him, more figures stepped into view. Men, women, some in traditional Thai dress, others in faded, everyday American clothes, all with the same lifeless eyes. Her mother's grip on the notebook tightened. "You brought them," she said to Maya, her voice breaking. "They can smell it on you." The nearest figure stepped into the room, and the air grew colder, as if the walls themselves were exhaling. The chanting stopped all at once, and in the silence, one of the pale-eyed figures spoke in perfect English, low, deliberate, like a judge passing sentence. "The secret belongs to us." Maya's breath caught, her ears ringing in the sudden stillness. Her mother stepped back, pressing herself against the far wall, the notebook still pinned to her chest like a shield. "You can't take her," her mother said in Thai, her voice fierce, the same tone she used when chasing stray dogs away from the yard. The pale-eyed figure tilted his head slowly, his milky gaze sliding toward Maya. When he spoke again, his mouth barely moved. She read enough. Maya's heart lurched. "I didn't read it," she blurted, the words tumbling out too fast. "You touched it," he interrupted, his voice scraping against her nerves like metal on stone. "That's all it takes." The other figures began to move, spreading out in the hallway, blocking the only exit. Their bare feet made no sound on the floorboards. The figure who brought her here stayed by the door, watching, arms folded like this was all inevitable. Maya's mother's hands were shaking now. "You have to run," she said, but her eyes darted toward the window, not the door. The pale-eyed man stepped closer to Maya, and she could see now that his skin was gray in places, like dried clay cracking along his jaw. He smelled faintly of damp soil and incense smoke. "The secret binds you," he said. "It bound them. It bound her." He nodded toward her mother. Maya felt her stomach twist. "What's in it?" she demanded, her voice breaking. The man's clouded eyes flickered, almost like amusement. "Your family's name," he said, "and the debt it owes." The figures behind him all moved at once, their arms stretching toward her in perfect unison. And then the window behind her mother shattered. Glass exploded inward, shards catching the golden lamplight as they scattered across the floor. A freezing wind tore through the room, snuffing out the candle in the corner and plunging half the space into shadow. Her mother didn't flinch. Instead, she spun toward the jagged opening, thrusting the notebook into Maya's hands so hard it hurt. "Go!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. The pale-eyed figures lunged forward, their movements jerky but fast, like marionettes pulled by invisible strings. Maya's body moved before her mind caught up. She vaulted over the shattered porcelain elephant, her boots crunching on broken glass as she climbed to the window frame. The cold air outside hit her like a slap. She landed hard on the damp grass below, knees buckling, but she kept moving. Above her, the chanting started again, louder now, chasing her across the backyard. The moonlight lit the overgrown garden, rows of dead lemongrass and basil stalks brushing against her legs as she ran. Her mind flashed to childhood summers, helping her mother plant herbs here while her father grilled chicken for neighbors. Back when the house was full of life, she reached the back fence. The wooden boards warped and splintered, clutching the notebook tight against her chest. She scrambled up, her palms tearing on the rough wood. From the corner of her eye, she saw movement in the dark, one of the pale-eyed figures, already outside, already watching her. It stood perfectly still, but its head tilted slowly, tracking her like prey. "Maya!" A voice hissed from the trees beyond the fence. Not her mother's voice. Deeper, urgent. She hesitated, one leg over the fence, not sure if she was running towards safety or straight into another trap. Glass exploded inward, shards catching the golden lamplight as they scattered across the floor. A freezing wind tore through the room, snuffing out the candle in the corner and plunging half the space into shadow. Her mother didn't flinch. Instead, she spun toward the jagged opening, thrusting the notebook into Maya's hands so hard it hurt. "Go!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. The pale-eyed figures lunged forward, their movements jerky but fast, like marionettes pulled by invisible strings. Maya's body moved before her mind caught up She vaulted over the shattered porcelain elephant, her boots crunching on broken glass as she climbed to the window frame. The cold air outside hit her like a slap. She landed hard on the damp grass below, knees buckling, but she kept moving. Above her, the chanting started again, louder now, chasing her across the backyard. The moonlight lit the overgrown garden, rows of dead lemongrass and basil stalks brushing against her legs as she ran. Her mind flashed to childhood summers, helping her mother plant herbs here while her father grilled chicken for the neighbors. Back when the house was full of life, she reached the back fence. The wooden boards warped and splintered, clutching the notebook tight against her chest. She scrambled up, her palms tearing on the rough wood. From the corner of her eye, she saw movement in the dark, one of the pale-eyed figures. Already outside, already watching her. It stood perfectly still, but its head tilted slowly, tracking her like prey. "Maya!" A voice hissed from the trees beyond the fence. Not her mother's voice. Deeper, urgent. She hesitated, one leg over the fence, not sure if she was running towards safety or straight into another trap. The voice came again, sharper this time. "Jump before they see you." Her chest tightened. In the moonlight, she could just make out a figure in the trees. Tall, wearing a hood, face hidden in shadow. Behind her, the pale-eyed watchers began to spill out of the broken window, their bare feet silent on the grass, their white eyes fixed on her. The notebook felt like it was pulsing in her grip, as if whatever lived inside it could feel the danger too. She swung her other leg over the fence and dropped down, landing in the damp dirt on the other side. Her hands stung from splinters, her knees screaming from the impact, but she forced herself to keep moving toward the hooded figure. They turned without a word, leading her deeper into the trees. Branches clawed at her clothes, twigs snapping underfoot, the smell of pine and wet earth replacing the incense and dust of the house. The chanting faded behind them, not gone, but waiting. Finally, the stranger stopped in a small clearing lit only by fractured moonlight. They pushed their hood back, revealing a man in his late 40s, his tanned skin weathered, a faint scar running from his temple to his cheek. "You have it," he said, his voice low, urgent. "Give it to me before they catch up." Maya stepped back, tightening her hold on the notebook. "Who are you?" "I'm the reason you're still alive," he said, "and the only one who can keep you that way." A branch snapped somewhere in the darkness. Then another. They were being surrounded. The man stepped closer, his eyes locking onto hers. "If you keep holding it, you'll belong to them before the sun comes up." From the shadows, the pale-eyed figures began to emerge, silent, closing in, and that's when the man whispered something that made her blood run cold. "They already took your father." Maya's breath faltered, her pulse hammering in her ears. "That's not possible," she said, but the words felt thin, weak even in her own ears. "My father died in a car accident." The man shook his head slowly. "That's what they wanted you to believe." The pale-eyed figures moved closer, their feet gliding over the ground without sound, their faces blank but intent. The smell of damp soil returned, thicker now, curling into her lungs like smoke. Maya's grip on the notebook tightened. "What do they want with my family?" "They don't want your family," the man said. "They own it. They have for decades." The nearest figure stepped into the moonlight, a woman in a faded silk sin, her long black hair tangled, her eyes the same dead white as the others. She stopped just a few feet away, and when she spoke, her voice came from somewhere deep, like the echo of a well. "Give it back, and you can keep your body." The man shifted subtly, placing himself between Maya and the woman. His hand brushed the hilt of a curved blade strapped to his side, a blade carved with swirling patterns that glimmered faintly in the dark. "They can't take you if you cross the line," he said to Maya. "But the line's far from here." The woman in silk tilted her head. "You think you can outrun us?" More figures emerged from the shadows now, forming a half-circle around the clearing. There was no path forward, no path back. The man leaned toward Maya, his voice barely a breath. When I tell you to run, don't stop no matter what you hear." The pale-eyed woman stepped forward, and the moment her foot touched the clearing, the earth beneath them began to hum. The hum grew deeper, vibrating up through Maya's shoes, rattling the bones in her legs. The pale-eyed woman's lips parted, and a stream of Thai words poured out, low, steady, like an incantation that made the night itself bend closer to listen. Around them, the other figures joined in, their voices weaving into the same chant Maya had heard in the house. The man's hand gripped her arm hard. "This is it. When the ground breaks, run." Maya's chest felt tight, her heartbeat syncing with the rhythm of the chanting. The notebook in her arms throbbed in time, almost as if it were answering them. Then the first crack split the dirt, thin but deep, running right between her and the pale-eyed woman. From it seeped a faint golden light, strange and warm against the icy air. The woman hissed and stepped back, but her chanting never stopped. "Now!" the man barked. Maya ran. She didn't think, didn't look behind. Branches whipped against her face. Roots snagged at her feet, but she tore through the dark with the notebook pressed to her chest. The chanting chased her, growing louder, twisting into words she could almost understand. Her name, her father's name, a place she didn't recognize. Somewhere behind her, she heard steel clash against something hard, followed by the man's shout, "Maya, keep going." But then, from ahead, in the darkness between the trees, a familiar voice called out, "Maya, it's Dad. Stop running." Her legs faltered mid-stride, the sound of that voice slamming into her like a physical blow. It was warm, steady, exactly as she remembered from the nights he would tuck her in and tell her to dream good things. She slowed, eyes scanning the shadows ahead. "Dad!" Her voice cracked on the word. Half hope, half disbelief. The forest around her had gone unnaturally still. No wind, no rustle of leaves, just the distant thrum of chanting far behind. Then, just beyond the reach of the moonlight, she saw him. Her father stood between the trees, wearing the same Navy work shirt from the night of the supposed accident, his hands open at his sides. Not a single wrinkle on his face, not a speck of dirt on his clothes. "Maya," he said softly, taking a step toward her. "You don't need to run anymore." She clutched the notebook tighter, her breath uneven. "They said you were." "I know," he cut in gently, his smile tinged with sadness. "They lied to protect you." Her mind screamed at her to keep moving, but her feet stayed rooted. Behind her, the metallic clang of the man's blade rang out again, followed by a sharp cry of pain, his pain. Her father took another step forward, and for the first time, she noticed it, the faintest cloudiness in his eyes, like milk swirling in tea. "Maya," he said again, his voice lower now, almost coaxing, "give me the book, and I can bring Mom back too." Her stomach twisted, a cold wave crawling up her spine. The words were tempting. So tempting it hurt, but something in his tone didn't sound like her father. It sounded rehearsed, like a line meant to be repeated until she believed it. She took a step back, her boots sinking into the soft earth. "How do I know it's really you?" she asked, her voice sharper than she felt. He smiled wider, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You know," he said simply, and for a heartbeat, his voice carried that familiar warmth again, the kind that could make her believe anything. The chanting behind her was growing again, closer now, threads of it winding through the trees like smoke. Her father extended his hand. "You can stop running. You can come home." The notebook pulsed in her grip, stronger than before, its heat almost burning through her jacket. She felt the weight of every choice pressing in on her, the promise of seeing her family whole again, or the warning in her mother's terrified eyes. A twig snapped to her left. She turned just in time to see a shadow detach itself from the trees. The hooded man, blood streaked across his temple, his blade still in hand. "Don't listen," he shouted, his voice raw, urgent. "He's not your father, he's theirs." Her father's expression didn't change, but his eyes locked onto man like a predator sighting prey. And then, in a voice that no longer sounded human, he said, "She's already ours." The words slid through the air like oil, heavy and suffocating, making the hairs on Maya's arms stand on end. The hooded man lunged forward, grabbing her wrist with one hand, while raising the curved blade with the other. "Move," he barked, pulling her away from the figure in the dark. Her father, or whatever was wearing his face, didn't follow at first. He simply watched, that unreadable smile fixed in place. Then his body jerked once, like a puppet string had been yanked, and he began to walk toward them, slow, deliberate steps, each one sinking unnaturally deep into the earth. The chanting swelled again, and now it was all around her. She realized with a sick twist in her gut that the pale-eyed figures weren't chasing anymore. They were circling. "They've closed the path," the man hissed. His grip tightened on her wrist. "We're not getting out the way we came." Her eyes darted through the shadows, searching for any gap between the trees, any break in the pale faces that glimmered faintly in the moonlight. Then she saw it, far to the right, a flicker of golden light between two massive oaks. It was faint, but it pulsed in the same rhythm as the notebook in her arms. "What is that?" she whispered. The man didn't look. "If it's what I think, it's your only chance to break the binding." Her father's voice came again, low and coaxing, cutting through the chant. "Maya, don't let him take you from me." The man yanked her toward the light, but the moment they moved, 3 of the pale-eyed figures broke from the circle, stepping into their path, and one of them was her brother. Maya froze mid-step, her breath locking in her throat. Her brother looked exactly as he had the day he vanished, barefoot, wearing the worn green hoodie she'd stolen from him once. A faint smudge of dirt on his cheek. Only his eyes were wrong. That same swirling white, empty yet fixed entirely on her. He tilted his head slowly, like he was studying her face, then spoke in a voice that was both familiar and hollow. "You left me." The words hit like a physical blow, dragging up memories she tried to bury. The night she was told he'd run away. How she cried in the dark, calling his name into an empty room. "I didn't," she began, but her voice cracked under the weight of it. "I didn't leave you. They told me." The hooded man stepped between them, his blade raised, his tone sharp. "That's not your brother anymore." But her brother's eyes softened, and for a split second there was something human in them. "Maya," he said, his voice trembling. "Help me?" The figures around them shifted, closing the circle tighter. The golden light between the oaks pulsed brighter, as if it could sense the choice pressing down on her. The hooded man's grip on her arm tightened painfully. "If you go to him, you'll never make it to the light," he warned. "That's how they take you." Her brother took a single step forward, his hands outstretched. "Maya, please." Somewhere deep in the woods, something let out a long, low moan. Not human, not animal, but close enough to both, to make her skin crawl. The hooded man pulled her toward the light again, but her brother's voice cracked in a way that shattered her resolve. "If you walk away now," he whispered, "I'll be alone forever." Maya's throat tightened, every breath feeling like it scraped against glass. The golden light ahead was so close now, she could almost feel its warmth on her face. But her brother's presence, his voice, his scent, even the way his shoulders slouched the same as when he was a boy, pulled at her like a tide. The hooded man's grip turned bruising. You stepped toward him. "And you're theirs forever," he growled. "I've seen it happen." Her brother took another step closer. The circle of pale-eyed figures shifted with him, closing in just enough that she could hear their breathing. Slow, steady, and all in perfect unison. "You didn't see what it was like, Maya," he said, his tone cracking under something deeper than pain. "Cold, empty, no sound except the chanting. I waited for you." Her vision blurred. She wanted to scream, to demand why no one had told her the truth, why she'd been left with nothing but lies and a gravestone. "Maya." The hooded man said sharply, his eyes flicking to the glowing gap between the oaks. You have 5 seconds before that light fades. And if it fades, there is no second chance. Her brother's lip trembled, and for the briefest heartbeat, she saw something, a flicker in his eyes, a shimmer of brown beneath the white, like he was still in there. 1, the hooded man counted. Maya, her brother pleaded, his voice dropping to a desperate whisper. Please don't let me disappear. 2, the chanting swelled, the ground humming again beneath her boots. 3, her father's voice cut through it all, low and certain. You belong here. 4, the golden light pulsed once more, almost in rhythm with her heartbeat. Her brother reached out his hand. 5, Maya's next step would decide everything, but her feet finally moved. She stepped toward the light. The hooded man yanked her forward with all his strength, and for the first time, the pale-eyed circle broke. Figures hissed and recoiled, their chanting twisting into a shrill, dissonant wail. Her brother's hand hung frozen in the air, just inches from hers. The shimmer of brown in his eyes vanished, swallowed whole by the milky white. His face went still, empty, as though whatever trace of him had been there was snuffed out. Maya's chest shattered on itself, but her legs kept moving. The light between the oaks blazed brighter as she approached, washing the trees in gold. The air around it felt strange, thicker, like stepping into water, but warm, alive. Don't look back, the hooded man warned, his voice low, urgent. They feed on regret. But she couldn't help it. She turned her head just enough to see them, the circle of pale-eyed figures now closing around her father and brother. Both stood perfectly still, their faces unreadable, watching her slip away. For a heartbeat, she thought she saw her mother in the crowd, too, her bun perfectly neat, her eyes not white, but dark, and brimming with something that might have been pride or sorrow. The golden light pulsed one last time, strong enough to make her shield her eyes. The hooded man stepped in first, his form blurring at the edges until he was swallowed completely. Maya hesitated at the threshold, the heat licking at her skin, the sound of chanting tearing at her from behind. She could feel the notebook's heartbeat matching her own. One last breath, and she stepped into the light. The warmth closed around her like a living thing, wrapping her in a weightless embrace. For a moment she couldn't see, only a flood of gold that bled into every thought, every memory. The smell of incense faded, replaced by something cleaner, like rain on sunlit pavement. When her vision cleared, she was standing in a field. Tall grass swayed under an open sky, the moon hanging low and soft above her. The forest was gone. The chanting was gone. The hooded man stood a few paces ahead, pulling back his hood fully now. His face was pale under the moonlight, lined with exhaustion, but there was relief there too. You made it, he said simply. Maya looked down at the notebook still in her arms. The pulse was gone. It was just paper now, weightless compared to what it had been. Her knees gave out, and she sank into the grass, tears slipping down her cheeks before she even realized. What happens to them now? She asked. Her voice shook, but she already knew the answer would hurt. The man hesitated. They remain where they are, bound, but not lost forever, if the debt is broken. Maya closed her eyes, the image of her brother's face searing itself into her mind. I'll come back for him, she whispered, more to herself than to the man. He gave a small nod, but didn't speak again. Above them, the first traces of dawn began to spill across the horizon, turning the field into a sea of pale gold. Maya rose slowly, still holding the now silent notebook, and took her first step toward the unknown, knowing the light had saved her. But the shadows still held her family.